Well, this is going to be a talk about season one of The Rifleman. But before I get into The Rifleman, I want to talk a bit about Sam Peckinpah because that's what got me into watching the show. I was going through a bit of an exploration of Sam Peckinpah recently. Of course, the only film of his that I had seen was The Wild Bunch, and it's no. I like it okay. It's not a movie that I go to often. It's so intense, and it's kind of, I guess, really violent. I mean, I'm not gonna get around it. It's really violent. All right, but anyways, that movie, I kind of wanted to explore a little bit more Peckinpah's filmography, and so I started with Ride the High Country because it's got Randall Scott and Joel McCrea, and as of right now, the date of this recording, this is probably my favorite Sam Peckinpah movie. But he also did another Western with Charlton Heston and Richard Harris called Major Dundee. This is like kind of a flawed film, but I really do enjoy it. And then The Ballad of Cable Hogue, starring Jason Robards. All right, this is actually kind of a comedic film. It's like a love story, and I quite enjoy this movie as well. So after watching those three films, I wanted to know a little bit more about Sam Peckinpah, and I found out that he created The Rifleman. And he was only on the show for season one, and then he left the show. But I just got done watching all 40 episodes of the first season, and you can find these. I know they're streaming on Tubi. I watched them on Peacock, but I think that you can even find these uploaded here on YouTube. So I watched the 40 episodes of season one. I'm going to give you my top 6 favorite episodes of the season. These are the ones that I watched that I enjoyed the most. Of course, 4 of these are going to be Sam Peckinpah related. So here we go. I'll break them down. Of course, The Rifleman stars Chuck Connors as Lucas McCain, and then he comes to town with his son, Mark, played by Johnny Crawford. He's a veteran of the Civil War, and he is a widower. His wife is deceased, so it's a man raising his boy alone. And they come to the town of North Fork, which is in New Mexico territory. So here we go. I'm going to run down my episode. So episode 1 of The Rifleman. This makes my list. It's called The Sharpshooter. It was directed by Arnold Lavin, and it is written by Sam Peckinpah. So it's his script. Lucas McCain and Mark McCain, his son, find a ranch in North Fork, New Mexico territory, and Mark ends up befriending a gunfighter played by Dennis Hopper. Great episode. Really good pilot for the pilot episode of his show, which is going to lead right into episode number 2, which also makes my list for my top episodes of the season. This episode is called Home Ranch. Lucas McCain's ranch is burned by 2 cowhands who then drag him and steal his rifle. And this one was directed by Arnold Lavin as well. And this one was also written by Sam Peckinpah. Episode number 4. I'm going to skip episode number 3, although episode number 3 was good. It had Michael Landon in it. We're going to go to episode number 4, which is called The Marshal. The Shelton brothers, played by Robert J. Wilk and Warren Oates. Of course, everybody knows Warren Oates from all the westerns he was in, right? They ride into North Fork and take revenge on an ex-lawman who is turned into a town drunk, Micah Torrance, who's played by Paul Fix. Marshal Fred Tomlinson, played by the legendary R.G. Armstrong, is killed by these guys, leaving the town without a marshal. So this is a really good episode as well. This one was written and directed by Sam Peckinpah, and I think it might be, I don't know, this might be the best episode of the entire season for me. It's in the running. It's up there. All right, next on the list, I have episode 22 of the season called The Boarding House. In this episode, Julia Mancini, played by Katie Girardo, is a reformed gambler. She's running a respectable boarding house, and her old boss shows up and tries to force her to turn her business into a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Really good episode. Lucas McCain kind of starts off antagonistic towards her at the beginning, played brilliantly by Chuck Connors, but by the end he's actually on her side. Really great episode. I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and it's pretty intense. Episode, it stands out from a bunch of the other ones in the series for sure. That's the last of the ones that's connected to Sam Peckinpah. I have 2 more on my list that I think are really good. The next one is episode 26. It's called The Deadly Weight, and it's Dan Murray, who's played by Lee Van Cleef. Yeah, baby. He's released from Yuma prison, and he's intent on killing Marshall Torrance, who helped put him behind bars. This one is directed by Joseph H. Lewis and written by Arthur Brown Jr. It's Lee Van Cleef, man. What can I say? Awesome. Episode number 40. This is the last episode of the season. This one made my list too. Here we go. It's called The Mind Reader. An accused of a murder he did not commit, a young man, played by Michael Landon, from Little House on the Prairie and Highway to Heaven, is cleared by the discovery of a mentalist. So there's this roving mentalist that's going around with this wagon. The mentalist is played by John Carradine. I really like this one. What a great way to end the season. It was directed by Dan Manford and written by Robert C. Dennis. I think those 6 episodes are like really highlights of the season, although I enjoyed all 40 episodes of the show. Some of them are more cliched than others, but I mean, I didn't even mention all the guest actors. There was an episode that had James Coburn in it. There was an episode that had Jack Elam. John Carradine was in another episode in this season, as was Michael Landon, and Dennis Hopper appeared in another episode as well. So, I mean, this is like a star-studded first season of a show. I really enjoyed it. I hope the quality stays as high as it has been as I go into season 2. Although I know Sam Peckinpah didn't like the direction that the show was going, so he left to work on other projects. I think he created another Western called The Westerner or something like that. I'll have to check into it. That was a single season, and then it got canceled. And then, of course, Sam went on to his movie career. Starting with The Deadly Companions, which wasn't a movie that he had control of, and it really turned him off to the studio system. So his follow-up to that was Ride the High Country. And by the way, if you've never seen Ride the High Country, what are you doing with your life? This movie is one of the best Westerns ever made. So that concludes my spiel on the Rifleman. I'll try to link episode number 1 below in the description box. So click the description box and look for that. I'll link episode 1 called The Sharpshooter so that you can go and watch that and enjoy watching a young Dennis Hopper. And hey, if you like it, watch the rest of the season. This is a really good show, man. All right, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. God bless.